Right. Well, looking at it the way that you are, gentlemen, I'd like to put this question to Jennifer. I think you had some comments to make here about this plan. Jennifer, do you agree, or would you say, if you don't agree with this, what is this missile defense program or this funding about?
Well, I think, first of all, I disagree with Mr. Jones. I don't believe that there is a Zionist lobby that controls Congress. I think that lets the people in the United States administration, whether they're senators, Congress people, in Obama's cabinet, whoever, I think it lets them off the hook, and they should not be let off the hook. They're responsible for the actions that they take. We also have to look at who gains most from these kinds of systems, like the Iron Dome system. The companies profiting most, or the people profiting most from Iron Dome, are not the pro-Israel lobbies like AIPAC. They're the aerospace industries and the weapons industries, the industries that are selling these high-tech, state-of-the-art weapons and arms to not just Israel, but many of the Gulf states as well. The reason is, of course, I think, as the other guest said, because it is a way of expanding U.S. Hegemony over the Middle East. And the one country that is not playing the game properly is Iran, the one country that matters, the one country that has real influence in the region. You have only to look at popular opinion polls in the in the Arab world to see that when asked, the vast majority, the overwhelming majority of people in the Arab world consider Israel and the United States the bigger threat, not Iran. Also, I think that the national unity government that was just formed today between Benjamin Netanyahu and Shaul Mofaz is, on the contrary, a strengthening of Netanyahu. Shaul Mofaz was, I hope people have longer-term memories, he was the defense minister during the Second Intifada, responsible for Operation Defensive Shield, the whole military operation that devastated and re-devastated the West Bank, and that led to the building of the wall and also to the disengagement, so-called disengagement with Gaza, which brings up where Gaza is now, under siege. Right. Shaul Mofaz is a hawk, and he and Netanyahu are going to work together very nicely.
Right. Dr. Jones, that brings me to the argument that Jennifer is now making. I'd like to have your response there. How much is this about the Middle East region as a whole, especially when it comes to the Israeli-Palestinian issue? How is this going to affect the Israeli-Palestinian case when we are speaking, for instance, about the situation in Gaza, the policies that these regimes in Israel are following when it comes to the peace process, and basically when it comes to the relations between Washington and Tel Aviv? Who is calling the shots here? Is it Tel Aviv pressuring Washington, or the other way around?
It's Tel Aviv pressuring Washington, but Washington has stood up to Tel Aviv here. The military establishment is dead set against an attack on Iran. That's what they told Obama. Obama is only following orders from the Pentagon in this regard. Now, in terms of why is Israel against Iran? Well, Israel is against Iran because Iran is supporting Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, and Israel got nowhere against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon in 2006. And I think that this is the lesson that the United States military has learned. The Iranians landed a drone. This is not a good sign for an attack. I think that that their cooler heads are starting to prevail. And they're starting to see that the neoconservative takeover of American foreign policy that led to the war in Iraq was a disaster for America. Right. And so therefore they're backing away and they're putting a leash on Benjamin Netanyahu.
Right. Richard Becker, let's have your view on this, see which side you agree with. Would you say that there is a strong Zionist lobby that is ruling affairs, rather, in the U.S. Congress, that they are the ones who are calling the shots?
No, I don't think that they are calling the shots. I agree with Ms. Lowenstein about this, and I think that the reason that the Zionist lobby or the pro-Israel lobby has been allowed to become so powerful in the U.S., and it has been allowed to do so, is because the U.S. and Israeli interests are largely parallel. They're not identical, though. And Israel is an extension of U.S. military power. I think to understand it in an objective sense, not that it's a puppet of the United States, but the reason that it's received not just $100 billion, but I would say well over $200 billion of valued in 2012 dollars in military aid from the United States, as well as from other NATO countries, France, Germany, and others, is because it plays the role of a permanent, emplaced military bastion in the center of this key strategic region of the world that is a crossroads between Africa, Europe, and Asia, and also holds the region 70% of the world's known petroleum reserves. This is considered by the U.S., which is the leading empire in the world today, to be strategically key to a strategy, a larger strategy, which is a strategy of global domination. And I think the idea that Israel, this small country in the Middle East, somehow controls the empire is a distorted view.
Right. So that brings me to the next question, Jennifer. Would you say then, when we are looking at the U.S. congressman saying that it's important for us to safeguard the interests of the Israeli people and Israeli troops, that our priority is the priority of Israel, would you say then that, as Richard Becker is saying, Israel is just, could be described, as he says, as an extension of the empire that the U.S. is rather trying to pursue?
Yeah, well, you know, it's a very hot debate in this country among the people who dare to talk about it. I see Israel as an offshore U.S. military base. I see Israel as an extension of U.S. power, as practically one and the same as U.S. power. Israel is one of the many military bases in the region that is, if you look at a map, encircling Iran and trying to make sure that it doesn't get any kind of independent influence in the region. I don't agree with one of the former speakers that Hezbollah is the reason that the Americans are opposed to Iran. Hezbollah is a much more minor power. If anything, if there were going to be a war against Iran, I think what we could expect, and this is where the Iron Dome system worries me, is that Israel would use the Iron Dome system and some kind of pretext to launch attacks against Lebanon and Gaza so that they would knock out any kind of close or regional ally of Israel and could then concentrate on Iran.
Right, Jennifer, I'd like to stop you there, if I may. I'm really sorry, we're running out of time. I'd like to have Dr. Jones' response before we end the show. Dr. Jones, your response to that, and basically when we do see the U.S. support for policies that Israel is pursuing, including its nuclear arsenal, the fact that it's considered a nuclear threat in the Middle East, how is this affecting the public opinion, and is it going to isolate the U.S. and Israel in the minds of the world public opinion?
Yes, I think it is. I think that the situation is that the United States is a puppet of Israel. Now, that was more the case under George Bush, and it's changing now, but that is the fundamental fact, and that's what Obama is standing up to and trying to change with Iron Dome as opposed to attacking Iran.
Okay, I'm afraid we've run out of time. A big thank you there to Dr. E. Michael Jones, editor of Culture Wars magazine, joining me there from South Bend, Indiana. I'd also like to thank, with the West Coast coordinator of Answer Coalition, Mr. Richard Becker in San Francisco, and also Associate Director of Middle East Studies Program with the University of Wisconsin, Jennifer Lowenstein, via Skype, joining us there from Madison. Thank you very much for staying with us. From me, Homa Lesgi, and the rest of the team. Until our next program, it's goodbye.